This is the new Sovol SV06. Ace. What? Let's go. I'll get straight to the point here. This is not an SV06 with fixers. This is an entirely new machine. I think you could count on one finger the similarities with the SV06, so I think they've named it pretty much for the aesthetics mainly. It has this knob on the front, for example. Maybe that's the one thing. And you know what? This is what the SV07 should have been. It is the natural progression of the Sovol family if you think about it. You're taking the success and simplicity of the SV06, which ran the Marlin operating system, and it really did it on a very minimal machine, and you're throwing Clipper at it, but you're doing it in a way that isn't too cheap. We don't have, for example, a terrible screen on this machine. This screen is actually very nice, but no extra expense is spent. This is ostensibly a budget machine at $299 at the time of review, but it's also not hugely missing anything you actually need, unless you wanted a light on the toolhead, because you're not getting one of those. Going around the toolhead, you have the SV06 styling, but I think it's a different actual extruder. It's still planetary and it still has a BMG style door on the side. I don't like these because the spring always disappears when you open it, but that's aside from the point. It's so much better with flexibles, at least on my test machine. With the SV06, we had a completely mixed bag on TPU results. I had two extruders. One of them did really well with TPU, one of them was terrible. That was completely weird, and I think users found that too. I'm much more confident here though, as this machine has not tangled or jammed once with flexibles, and if you are a subscriber then you know that I've tested the absolute crap out of it. If you don't subscribe, by the way, this is a subtle hint, you maybe should. I have squirrels. So we must be totally bored of hearing about Clipper by now, surely, but if you're new to this, then Clipper is the operating system behind this thing. It's an open source firmware software stack that runs on single board computers. It's kind of similar to Raspberry Pi. It's built on Linux. It's on basically every machine now that you can buy, and apart from the closed source ones like Bamboos. But I want to point out that what makes Sovol unique in this market sector is their actual willingness to follow the open source rules by actually making the code available on release. I've spoken to them at length about the importance of this, and they assure me that they're committed to doing the right thing with open source. So if doing the right thing with open source matters to you, and it should, then this printer is probably going to be a lot more attractive. This is some kind of maker-based platform running under the SV06 Ace, and it's a toolboard in the rear cupboard, which is quite accessible in the same kind of way as the SV06, which was taken from the Prusa i3 style. But in this case, there's also a magnetic cover on the toolhead because that hosts some other stuff like the camera cable, because now we have a camera. It's just USB-C, and it's kind of a cheap camera. It's not that astounding in image quality, but it will do the job. The old SV06 had two motors running haphazardly off a single driver, so if you have one or you remember, it had to do this weird leveling where it went right up to the top of the frame. The Ace is again not remotely based on the 06 in that respect. They have fitted 2 drivers for the Z. You have a proper Clipper-based gantry leveling system now where it uses a macro and it probes from side to side and levels itself far more normally. Does it consequently do a decent first layer? Well, yes it does, mostly. I had some weird deal with PETG during testing, which I haven't entirely worked out why, but PLA and TPU prints all seem fine on first layer, as you can see. I did manage to fix the PETG issue by changing the Z height in the context menus while doing the first layer, so I don't know if it's just the profile is over extruding or it's got some weird setting on the first layer for PETG or what. The print, once I'd done that, came out absolutely fine. So that's going to remain a bit of a mystery until I figure it out. In terms of that bed leveling, it is done by the nozzle in the popular wipe and prod method. That's what we're calling it now. We see this in a lot of printers. There's even a dedicated wiper at the back, just like on, say, the Bambu A1. It does a lot of dancing around back there because it's got to purge, warm up, cool down, wipe, etc. This does seem quite effective, but one thing I did note is that it wouldn't be a bad idea to cover the belt slot with something that you can print out, especially if you're not using the standard bed, because purge stuff can drop down the back here. The nozzle, this is quite important I think, as the last couple of Sovol machines have not used, but this one does use, the Sovolcano nozzle, as opposed to a proprietary nozzle. It's still proprietary, but it's a normal screw-in nozzle, if that makes sense. It's almost the same as a Volcano nozzle, but not quite. And it's also not the same as the Creality, almost the same as the Volcano nozzle. It's annoying, but that's how it is. This is, on the one hand, good because I think it uses the same ones as the SV07, so they're already available. But on the other hand, I do wish they'd just use Volcano size, because standards are good. This setup, though, is likely to give you about 30 to 35 cubic millimeters per second, and maybe a bit more. I can confirm that that's definitely achievable based upon my previous TPU shenanigans. Let's talk about wheels. The SV07 drove everyone mad because they went from linear bearings to wheels. I still maintain that this is just snobbery and you can't tell the difference, but it does seem like Sovol have sort of listened, I guess, or perhaps capitulated. Who knows? Someone is going to have to tell me whether we like these metal wheels or not, because they're wheels, but they're metal. I haven't received personally updated groupthink talking points on this one. I think Bambu used them on the A series. In my opinion, they are absolutely fine mechanically, of course, but what sells printers is opinions and not facts, and unfortunately, I wish I was joking. They have used bigger stepper motors, and they've used thicker belts, which again, is kind of cool, and people like that. I have no idea if it makes a difference. It would be interesting to experiment with that at some point. So we have here in the SV06 Ace a successor to the SV06, which was almost exactly 2 years ago to the day. Well, about a month. Time flies, but it's definitely more spiritual than mechanical in its successor-ness. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. It's also absolutely fine as a printer. The original SV06 was a pretty usable printer for its price at the time, although with the dust settling on that, it did have some problems like the bed leveling, the gantry I think, and the solder connections under the bed. A lot of that would have been down to the volumes they sold. When you sell a lot of printers, you get a lot of people owning them, and therefore, even if you have 1%, I don't need to go into that. This version shouldn't be vulnerable to the same issues as they've seemingly addressed them. It's going to have to find new issues, and I'm sure there will be. It's going to take time to figure out what those are. But on the face of it, especially for $299 US, compared to the price of the SV06, which I can dig out and put on screen, that was 2 years ago. I think this represents particularly good value for money because if you compare it to the original SV06, Marlin is a lot less demanding on hardware, and the price has not gone up as much as the necessity to increase the level of hardware, if that makes sense. It seems like a pretty good entry point to 3D printing for pretty much anyone, especially people who want to tinker with it. That's it. If you want to buy one of these, then please visit the links below in the description, as they do support the channel, and it does make a difference. If you go on to purchase literally anything, then obviously it's an affiliate link. So if you have any questions, you can reach me in the comments or Discord. I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.